Our next presenter is a man that ran quite a grassroots campaign last year, which is really phenomenal. It just shows how any of us, any of you, with the kind of determination and the passion, can put together other people with that same determination and passion, which is really kind of the essence of what we are here at NORC, to try to get people more motivated and working together. And here's a man who pulled it off beautifully. And I'd like to bring up Mark Brancheau. Thank you for coming, Mark. And I know he's got some pictures. I'm going to bring this over here for your assistant, your lovely assistant, to run through the pictures for you. So.
Hi, everybody. I'm not a politician. I'll just give you a brief background on my resume, my political resume.
Louder.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take that higher.
Okay. I run a Facebook group called Conservative Politics, and we have about 400 members, and that was in August. I've been to a couple Trump rallies. I've been a lifelong Republican, and I got involved in the Gretchen Whitmer lockdown protest with John Jocelyn in 2020, and I showed up wearing a mask. But other than that, that's my resume, so it's pretty unremarkable. And our story about our, one thing I want to do real quick, and the only thing I brought up was my phone, is I want to honor our volunteers that are here. Cheryl Futrell, our senior project manager, Bob Futrell, Judge Southern, Allison Ramirez, Kathy Dawson, Jackie DeRuiter, Jenny Evans, and John Jocelyn, and there's a lot more, but they're not here. How the journey all started, and the construct of our journey, the time frame is important. It was from August of last year until 1 week before the election, so about 90 days this all occurred. And it all started really completely by accident. It started, I was taking my son to a soccer game over in Macomb County in Utica on a Sunday. And as I went over to, when I got to Macomb County, I saw a visual that I've never seen before. As I was driving to the field, I saw nothing but Trump yard signs everywhere. Yeah. Every single home had a Trump yard sign. I turned the street, it's the same thing. I turned the street again, and it's the same thing. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. And I got home, and I went to my Facebook page, and I posted, I said, well, whoever's running Macomb County, they're killing it. They're doing a fantastic job. And everybody started liking the page. On Facebook, they hit like. But I think it was Jody Behringer said, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to do anything? And it got me thinking. I was like, well, let's see if there's anybody interested in doing anything. And a bunch of people said, yeah, we're interested in doing something. And my neighbors are Bob and Cheryl Futrell and Kathy Dawson, who's a precinct delegate. And I started thinking, well, maybe we could do a pop-up sign, Trump rally sign here in Clarkston. And as you heard my resume, I had no idea how to even go about doing this. And my neighbor, Cheryl, said, well, there's a Republican office down in Bluefield Hills. Why don't you go down there, see if you can get some signs. So I drove down there, and I met a lady, and I introduced myself, and I told her what our group was trying to do. And I'll just put it this way, it got a little confrontational, and I wasn't sure why. But she said, well, how do I know you're not a Democrat? And I made the mistake of saying this. I said, well, I belong to the North Oakland County Republican Party. And she said, well, that's not the party, that's a club. Kind of got her mad. But I then, and this is a key point, I said, well, do you want me to pay for the signs? And she said, yes. So I ended up paying for 50 Trump yard signs, and I signed my name and my phone number on a piece of paper, and I grabbed the signs, and the last thing I said to the lady was, well, if we do a good job, can we do more of these? And she said, well, bring me some data. And she walked away. So I loaded up the Trump signs, the 50 Trump signs, and I drove back to Clarkston. On my way, I was kind of thinking, well, geez, that was kind of a bizarre experience. But the key thing for me, though, was I was thinking, well, I only have 50 signs. That's a nothing burger. And I was talking to my neighbor, Kathy Dawson, and I said, she said, well, maybe if you call this, I know a high-level Republican person, here's his number, give him a call and see if you can get more signs. I said, sure. So I called the number, and the person answered. I've never met this person before. And I told him what we wanted to do, and his answer was no. I said, okay, thanks a lot, and I hung up. I didn't think anything of it. But what ended up happening was a friend of mine who lives in Genesee County, I was telling him what we were doing, and he told me there was a Trump campaign store that just opened up in Burton, Michigan. He said, well, why don't you go up there and see if you can get some signs? And if you can, we'll do a rally in Linden, and then you can do one in Clarkston. I said, okay. So he texted me the address, and I drove up there. And I'm going to say this girl's name. I met a girl named Rachel in the office, and I told her what we wanted to do. And she said, well, how would you like 100 Trump signs? I said, well, is it going to cost me any money? And she said, well, no, they're free. I said, okay. And I gladly took them. But what ended up happening was I was supposed to do a rally with my friend in Linden on a Thursday, and then on Friday we're supposed to do one in Clarkston. You might have seen us. We're right over here at Neiman's. That's where we did them in Clarkston. And he came down with COVID. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? I can't do Linden. And he said, well, he's telling me, well, just pass all the 150 signs out in Clarkston. I said, well, I can't do that. Let me make sure it's okay with the girl in Burton, Rachel. So I talked to her, and she gave me the green light to do it. So I was really excited that we had 150 signs. And so we got the volunteers ready, and I'm just going to quickly explain how we went about doing it. We teamed up with Judge Southern, who had huge Trump Vance signs, and John Johnson he created 5 huge free Trump yard signs, and we broke our volunteers into 2 groups. The front group worked the road, and the back group passed out the signs and got the data. And my neighbor Kathy came up with 5 sheets with name, address, phone number, and email. So this was our first rally we've ever done. We've never done it before. And we go out and we do it. And we do the rally, and I got to tell you, we were totally unprepared for what was about to happen. It turned into a zoo. I mean, Neiman's parking lot, if you were going to shop at Neiman's, you might not even be able to get in there. There was that many people coming to get the signs. So we get done doing the rally. We could barely keep up, and I was working in the back, and I had 3 sheets, and I got all the sheets filled out. And the other girl had 3 sheets, but she told me, well, we were getting so overrun, I only got the name, address, and phone number. I didn't get the email, and I wasn't even sure what data we even needed to get. But we were all excited, and we could see the potential of what we could do with this. So I said, oh, they're going to love this. So I went back down to Bloomfield, and I see the lady, and I'll just say this, the meeting didn't go well. So I'm being politically correct here, because we're all on the same team. But I left that Bloomfield office, and I was furious. And I got home, and she told me, you guys aren't getting any more signs. And I said, okay. So I got home, and everybody's asking me, well, when are we doing it? And I said, well, we're not. We're done. And Kathy, once again, I was talking to my neighbor Kathy, and she says, well, why don't you text this guy? I know this guy, he's in the Republican Party. Keep in mind, I don't know any of these people. And so I text the guy, and I told him what had happened, and he calls me. And he says, well, you went about it all wrong. You called and asked for more signs, and you went around this lady right to her boss, and I tried to explain to the guy, like, I don't even know who this guy is, who I called. I have no idea who he is. I wasn't trying to do anything underhanded. I was just trying to do a good rally. And then he tells me, well, I want your group to go back out and do a rally with no signs, get the data and bring it to us, and we'll get them the signs. And I said to him, you want us to hold free Trump yard signs with no Trump yard signs? He said, yeah. I said, okay. Well, I hung up, and I immediately sent a text to our group. I said, guys, we're done. I'm done. This is done. We're not going to do this anymore. About 2 hours later, my phone rang, and it's someone saying they're from the Trump campaign. And at first I thought they're asking for a donation or something, they call you for money. And he said, no, I'm not going to say his name, but he said, I'm with the Trump 47 campaign in Oakland County. And I'm calling about an incident that happened in Bloomfield Hills. And I was like, incident in Bloomfield Hills? What are you talking about? And so I told him what happened. And he said, well, how would you like 100 signs to pass out your group? And I was kind of confused at that. I said, well, what's going on? And he said, well, I'm with the Trump campaign, the Trump 47, and then there's the Oakland County Republican Party. We share the same building, and you kind of been dealing with the Oakland County Republican Party. I said, okay. I said, we'll do it, but I'll send my neighbor down to get the signs because I didn't really want to go down there. So we do the second rally with 100 signs. And this time, it being our second time, we're well more organized in what to do. We do it. We get all the information and the data. And I send it over to the Trump 47 guy. And as a group, we were talking afterwards. We're like, we can scale this way up. 100 signs is a nothing burger. And the guy from the Trump 47 campaign called me. And he says, I love this, Mark. This is awesome what you guys did. Can you do more? And I said, well, is there any chance we can scale this up? And he said, well, what do you have in mind? I said, well, we want to do things like maybe like the largest Trump yard campaign sign rally in Waterford. And he said, well, what would that require? I said, well, 500 signs. He said, well, where are you going to do it? I said, well, the old Kmart on Dixie Highway. He said, oh, I love that. Let's do it. And I said, well, then we want to do 200 the next day in Clarkston. He said, come on down and get the signs. So I went down and I met the two guys from the Trump campaign, and they're real nice. They helped me load my car up with 500 Trump signs. And he said, well, either I'm going to come out to your rally or I'm going to meet up the next day. I'm going to give you the 200 signs. I said, okay, that sounds great. So we do the Trump rally in Waterford that Thursday. It was probably, from what someone told me, was the largest Trump rally sign ever in Waterford Township history. We did 466 signs, one at a time. So we do that, and we're all fired up, but something happened during that event. A couple people came out from the ORCP or something like that and talked to us. And then the next day, I don't hear anything. And we're supposed to do a campaign rally in Clarkston. So I called down to the Trump 47 team, and I said, well, what's going on? We need the 200 signs. And he informs me, well, you guys have been cut off. You're being shut down. And I said, well, why? I said, we just did the largest Trump rally in Waterford, and you're shutting us down the next day? He said, yeah. But he said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. If you drive to Walled Lake, you can pick up 100 signs. But after that, you guys are done. So I said, okay. I drove to Walled Lake. I picked up the 100 signs, and we did the last rally here in Clarkston. But something happened during that rally that David Hayward, who's the new Independence Township trustee, came out with an idea for our group, and he came out with a business card with a barcode that's scanned right to our Facebook group. So people, when they were coming through, were asking, well, how do I get involved in your group? Where are you guys going to be? We'd just say scan to our Facebook group. It was a private group, and they would join our group. And about 50 people joined our group that day. So we got done with that rally, and we know, okay, well, we're done pretty much in Oakland County, even though we wanted to do Oakland County. And we got together as a group, and we're trying to figure out, well, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? And I said, well, I went up to Burton, and I got the first 100 signs. Let me see if I can go up to Burton, and we can do something up there. And not one person in our group said, no, I don't want to go, or let's not do Genesee County. They were like, yeah, we want to win. We want the Republicans to win. So I went up, and I had a meeting with I can say their names, April and Rachel from the Trump 47 team in Burton in Genesee County. And they said, Mark, we're going to support your group, but on one condition. You have to do the yard sign rallies in Genesee County, not Oakland, Genesee County. I said, those terms are agreeable. We'll do it. And one other thing she said, you no longer have to have anybody, as the gentleman before me was talking about, their technology was way more advanced. She said, all you have to do is just have someone scan the barcode, they put in their data, the data is instantly sent to our office. You don't have them sign any paperwork anymore. So we'll know in real time what your group is doing. How many people you signed up, how many signs you gave up. I said, well, that's great. So she said, well, where do you want to go first? I said, well, as I drove up there, I didn't know the area very well. I said, well, we'll do Goodrich. Let me get 300 signs. We went out that Friday, or it was Thursday, I believe, and we did 300 signs in Goodrich. And it was just, we almost shut M15 down. It was that fanatical. But after that, our group just went on, I call it the Magical Mystery Tour. We started doing rallies all over Genesee County. And going back to the Goodrich one we did, we got done with it real quickly. I got home and my phone rang and it was Rachel, and she said, they had all the data already. And I sent her pictures of the rally, and she said, how soon can you do another one? And the other thing that happened at the Goodrich one was, for the first time when we got to Goodrich, there was volunteers there that we didn't even know who they were. But they had signed into our Facebook group and came out and said, hey, we want to be part of this. So we started doing this all over Genesee County. In a lot of rallies, I'd be thinking, are we going to have enough people? And sure enough, there'd be people there. I'll give you some numbers of what we did. We did 2 in Linden, 2 in the city of Fenton, 4 in Fenton Township, 2 in Grand Blanc, 1 in Davison, 1 in Flint Township, 1 in Burton, 2 in Otisville. I never even heard of Otisville. But there's one rally I want to talk to you about real quickly. We were up in Fenton Township, and we're doing this rally, and the Fenton Township supervisor came out there. His name was Vince. He was a Republican, and he's seen what's going on, and he's going, this is awesome. This is incredible. He goes, nobody's ever come into Fenton Township and done anything like this. And I'm like, well, yeah, we're happy to do it. And normally, and I was talking to him, normally I worked the front. I was always busy. I never usually talked to anybody. I was always out there working. Usually Cheryl or Jody did that. But, and it started getting really busy. And I told him, well, I got to get going, Vince. And he said, okay, nice meeting you. And he didn't know my name, but he said, I want to thank the Genesee County Republican Party for doing this. And he shakes my hand. And I just went, okay. And I went back to work. And also at that rally, a girl named from Natalie showed up, a volunteer from Otisville. That's how we ended up in Otisville. She showed up and she was a great volunteer. She said, hey, can you do something in Otisville? I said, was that in Genesee County? She said, yeah, we ended up doing 2 there. But when we got done with that rally in Fenton, we were talking, and as a group, we'd always talk afterwards. And we were laughing about that. I said, that Fenton Township supervisor thinks we're we're the Genesee County Republican Party. And we thought it was kind of funny. And there was always 2 areas in Oakland County that I wanted to do so bad: Holly and Brandon. Because I would drive, anytime I went to Genesee County, I drove through those 2 areas, and I always saw, oh, those areas are so neglected. But the Brandon Township supervisor, Jason Rumble, was in our group, and he contacted me, and he said, hey, Mark, can you get me some signs? I said, sure. So I met up with him, and I got him some signs, and I said, Jason, can you find me a place in Brandon to do a rally? And he said, well, let me think about it. Let me see if I can find a place. But there was a place at M15 in Grange Hall. M15 in Grange Hall. I said, well, what about that, Jason? That'd be a perfect location. He said, well, that's Groveland Township. That's not Brandon, that's Groveland Township. So my spider sense was tingling, and I kept looking at this place, and I'm like, oh, we got to do a rally there, but it's in Oakland County. It's about a mile and a half from Genesee County. So I got this idea. I was thinking big, and I called up. I was talking to Cheryl and Bob, and I said, I want to see how big of a rally we can do. But I said, this Groveland area would be the perfect place to do it, but it's in Oakland County. But I said, it's about a mile and a half from Genesee County. And I said, if we did one there, it'd probably be about 70% Genesee County, because M15 is the main thoroughfare, and 30% Oakland County. So I called up there, and I talked to April, and I said, April, I got this in mind. Can I do this? And she said, well, what will it require? I said, 800 signs. Her response was, come get them. So I drove up to Burton on a Saturday. I loaded 800 signs into my Honda CR-V. And I got done, and as I got done loading it, a gentleman approached me. I was on the back dock, and he said, hey, is your name Mark? And I went, yes. He says, can I talk to you for a minute? I said, sure. So I went back in the campaign office. I sat at a table, and he said, are you the group that's doing these pop-up rallies all over Genesee County? I said, yeah, that's us. He said, well, what's the name of your group? I said, we don't have a name. He said, where are you guys from? I said, well, most of us are from the Clarkston area. He said, Clarkston? You guys are from Clarkston, and you guys have been doing all these rallies all over Genesee County? I said, yeah. And he said, well, I'm with the Genesee County Republican Party, and we've been getting inundated with phone calls, and we're trying to figure out who the hell you guys are. And he said, well, where are you going next? And I said, well, unfortunately, we're going a little bit back to Oakland County. We're kind of going to do a split one with Oakland and Genesee County and Groveland Township. And he says, well, can I come? I said, sure. He said, well, I'm going to have the Genesee County Republican Party outreach manager get a hold of you. Her name's Tammy. And she calls me, and we talked on the phone, and it took her about 10 minutes to absorb the fact that we were from Oakland County up doing this in Genesee County. And she said, can I come down and help? I said, sure. And I told them, we're trying to do a record here. We're trying to do 800 signs in one rally. And so we went about our business, and they got there, and I was setting up set up for 3 car lanes. And Tammy was saying to me, the Genesee County, she says, well, what are you doing? I said, well, we're going to have 3 car lanes. And she says, well, what for? I said, because in about 5 minutes, we put those free Trump yard signs, we're going to be 20, 25 cars deep. So we started about 2:45, and we got done about 6:50. And we were going for 800 signs. And we ended up doing 670 signs. And this rally was a little bit different, because we had to ask every car that came up there, well, are you from Oakland or Genesee County? And if they're from Oakland County, we had like a brochure of all the school board and judges and candidates, and we gave them that. And if they're from Genesee County, we gave them the Genesee County one. And we also, so we get done doing that, we did 670, and I actually said to Tammy, I said, man, I'm really sorry we didn't hit the 800. And she said to me, Mark, are you crazy? This is incredible what you guys just did. I've never seen anything like it. She says, can you come back and help us do some rallies? I said, sure. But we ended up, Rachel from the Genesee County 47 Club called me and said, hey, you guys are in Oakland County. J.D. Vance is coming to do he's coming to Auburn Hills to do a rally. Can you go volunteer to help? I said, sure. So me and Jenny went over there and we helped, and we saw the Trump 47 team from Oakland County. And I said hi to him. I mean, I have no problem doing Oakland County, but he talked to Jenny. He said, well, hey, can you come back and do a rally again in Oakland County? And Jenny said, sure. So we did one more rally in Oakland County. We did 450 signs again in Waterford. So we did over 900 signs in Waterford total. And then the Brandon Township Supervisor got a hold of us and said he had a spot right across from Bullfrog, so we were able to go do, with the permission, we passed out 140 signs, just me and Jenny, two of us, right on M15, right across from Bullfrogs. We did Brandon Township. And then we're getting down to the end here, and I went up and I helped the Genesee County Republican do 3 rallies in Burton, Flinton Township, and Fenton. And at that point, in 90 days, I had done 24 rallies. And it wasn't about me, but I was pretty exhausted. And so we ended up, the Trump 47, Rachel got a hold of me, and she ended up saying, hey, I want to make sure I get all certificates of appreciation to all your volunteers. So I got that from her, and they really appreciated it. And we met at Mr. B's like 3 or 4 days before the election, and I passed them out. We had dinner here up at Mr. B's. But in closing, after the election, after Trump won, I got a call from Tammy from the Genesee County Republican Party. And they're having a victory party, and she said, Mark, I want you to come up here. And I was kind of tired, and I was way up on Corona Road. I said, okay, I'll come up there. And the place is packed. Trump had just won, and they're going nuts. And she got up and she spoke about her group. And she said there's an unknown group from Oakland County that came up and passed out 5,000 signs in Genesee County. Over 25% of all the Trump yard signs were passed out by a group from Oakland County. In total, between Oakland and Genesee County, we passed out 7,000 signs, over 7,000 signs. And I'd love to do Oakland County. There's no ill will on our part. But right now, there is 1,000 names of voter data from Oakland County voters sitting up in Genesee County that April Snyder will be willing to give to them. Somehow try to coordinate that. But take care. God bless.
Good job. Mark Brancheau, that's a great grassroots story, and it just shows how just for the right people, the right inspiration, we can get things done. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here at Newark, getting all this type of good action together to accomplish good government. And that's what it's all about. So thank you so much, Mark. Good job.